Alright, so I've been pumping some hours into Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, and just like the previous game, I'm really enjoying it. Now, have I beaten this game yet? No, I'm not a cool kid who got a review code, and I'm probably honestly not even halfway through, because this game is such a slow burn, and quite frankly, I'm really just trying to enjoy it, but these are my thoughts so far. And I'm by no means a Yakuza veteran. Yakuza Like a Dragon was my first entry. The change from the style to an RPG type game just really interested me, and quite frankly is probably one of the things I enjoy most about this game. This game moves our hero Kasuga from the island of Japan to the island of Hawaii on a quest to meet his mother, which ultimately leads him tumbling down a rabbit hole of criminal organizations and conspiracies, and quite frankly a very well written story that does have some rough pacing. But before I get into the story, which I don't want to spoil too much at all, I do want to talk about the gameplay first. And gameplay-wise, this game adds on to what the first one built. It's a pretty straightforward RPG gameplay that fantasizes the real world because Kasuga just sees fights and basically life as a whole as an RPG. Your team has various jobs in this game that are inspired around vacation excursions that Kasuga and the party end up experiencing while in Hawaii, and because of this, the jobs that they give you are very fun, visually charming, and give you a lot of interesting abilities and skills, ranging from surfing divers, samurais, and even maids with various cleaning utensils. The way this game adds onto combat is it lets you actually move around a bit now instead based on your movement stat, which lets you position yourself better. This allows you to knock enemies into walls or teammates, and allows you more freedom to grab weapons on the ground so that you can use them in combat. I wouldn't say this is anything game breaking, but it is a nice additional layer. And most enemies also have various elemental weaknesses like fire or ice, as well as weaknesses to things like ranged attacks or slashing. You also get team up moves and support abilities, which are unlocked via relationship building. They really give you a lot of tools in combat to utilize in this game. Pound Mates is also back, which is essentially your summoning system. Mostly these are collected from doing various side quests where you collect the phone numbers from interesting individuals, and they are basically the mythical beasts that you summon to help you in battle. And this can range from delivery drivers, Yakuza bosses LARPing as babies, and even lesbian pet crabs. Some of these will stick around for a few turns, attacking, providing various benefits, while others will do a big cinematic attack. While I enjoy this feature, it can be quite expensive to use, so you really end up just saving it for bosses and for tough situations unless you have, well, infinite wealth. And while some fights can be tricky, mostly the bosses, the game in general does seem to be somewhat easy so far. The beginning is a bit of a cakewalk unless you walk into the higher level areas. There's also these special crowned enemies now, which are much stronger than regular enemies, and these enemies with the crowns are special enemies that usually are defending some type of loot, and these enemies can really take you by surprise sometimes. For the most part though, I haven't encountered any major challenges yet, and I do remember in the previous game there were certain points where the difficulty would jump, so I'm kind of expecting that to happen again, but for now, I'm not really experiencing the challenge. The game also does have a nice feature where if you encounter a pack of blue or weaker enemies, you can just hold a button down and instantly destroy them, which makes running around lower areas nice when you're trying to retread old territory and grab an item or do an old quest. Jumping into the story though, and again, I don't want to dig into spoilers too much, and also, again, I have not beaten the game, but the basic story is that Kasuga and his previous teammates have life going pretty well after the events of the last game. Kasuga is trying to live out his master's legacy of trying to help former Yakuza members get back into society with respectable jobs, and a streamer ends up ruining the lives of Kasuga and his crew, and they all get fired from their jobs. And now because Kasuga can no longer help ex-Yakuza members get real jobs, a small Yakuza faction starts bubbling up. This eventually leads to him finding out some events in the previous game weren't 100% what he thought they were, and also finding out that his mother is still alive and in Hawaii. Honestly though, I think this is just a ploy to get him out of Japan, but we'll see how that story unfolds. Now, while this game does take place in the real world, everything is fantasized, so Hawaii has a ton of criminal underground organizations going on, such as fake malls for counterfeit goods and hidden casinos scattered all over the island. And of course, in usual fashion, Kasuga gets caught up in gang activity once again. Honestly though, I don't think the intro hook of this game is as strong as it was in the last game, and quite frankly, the beginning of the game does feel like a little bit of an info dump. Now, you do see a scene that raises a lot of questions, and there's a ton of mystery around it, and Kasuga's mother, Akane, every single crime organization on the island of Hawaii is after her, which definitely lays some mystery, and she is also trying to protect a 10-year-old girl, which also further deepens the mystery, but I just don't think the game hook in the beginning is as gripping as Babies in Lockers and the betrayal that happened in the previous title. The game really does pick up about 3 to 4 hours in though when you eventually reach the island of Hawaii, and when this happens you do eventually run into the game's previous protagonist Kiryu, who works for a government faction who are also after Kasuga's mom Akane. So yeah, Kasuga's mom is a pretty hot individual and nobody is actually really sure why they're after her, which is kind of odd from a storytelling perspective. But due to Kasuga's personality, he quickly starts getting a party together of misfits to go with him on another journey through the criminal underworld to find his mother, joining together and becoming best friends with cab drivers who try to rob him, mysterious heiresses that drug him and abandoned him naked on a beach, and the former face of the franchise, Kiryu. The thing is that Kiryu at this point is a legend. There's even a plot thread in the story around island Yakuza members who see Kiryu's head as basically a trophy. And while they spoil in the trailer why Kiryu isn't as strong as he used to be, and goes from, well, this to this, I think it's actually really well done in my opinion, and adds a really interesting layer to the story, and also helps kind of portray what kind of character and person that Kasuga really is when it comes to helping him. Now I really love the buddy cop dynamic that Kiryu and Kasuga have going on. They're both Yakuza at heart, but they share very similar ideals of honor, kindness, and protecting those who can't defend themselves, but they carry out these ideals in very different ways. Kiryu is more stoic, wise, and pragmatic, where Kasuga is a much more boisterous, naive, and emotional individual. Seeing these two bounce off each other, not butting heads, but respecting each other's strengths, I think works really well. That said, the party members are all pretty well written as well, and each of them have their own very deep stories that all unfold in their own unique ways, and also interweave into the plot at various points. Now, while the story does get you wrapped up and heavily invested and engrossed in this realistic fantasy world, it does move at an extremely slow pace in the beginning, which can be a little grating, and if you don't have a lot of patience for daytime drama dialogue and somewhat cheesy plot points, this might not be a good fit for you, and could quite frankly be a challenge to get through. That said, the balance of wacky humor, extreme violence, and very hype moments just really brings it all together. To me, the highs of the story and the way it ramps up when you get into a dungeon and fight a boss at the end with their cool cutscenes and their crazy music sets in. Sure, it can be cheesy, but it really just works for me and gets me excited. I mean, you fight Danny Trejo in a penthouse, machetes and all. Sure, it can be whacked to some, but quite frankly, I just love it. Now, aside from the roller coaster of emotions that the main story is, you also get tons of side quests in this game, which vary wildly in story and tone. And you can get invested in these pretty well, but a handful of them I just found I didn't care for and quite frankly thought were boring. And here, I definitely abused the skip cutscene button a few times, which I feel is a welcome feature as some of these side quests just really fall flat. This game is also packed full of mini-games, mostly being from popular Sega franchises. We have claw machines, arcade games, randomly generated dungeons, the classic karaoke game,
worthless humans cooked into a room.
a Tinder-esque matching game called Mismatch,
To choose a good response. Can't go wrong with this one. What do I say? Nailed it.
Crazy Taxi-inspired food delivery game, and they even take a few swings at Nintendo by adding a realistic Animal Crossing that you can build an island resort, and they basically feature every single thing that Animal Crossing has, but it's more streamlined and they give you tons of furniture and blueprints right away. This game even features the only online component where you can bring other people to your island to see it. They also take a swing at Pokemon with the whole Shinjukumon Battle League, where you capture enemies, train them up, evolve them, battle other trainers, fight other gym leaders known as the Discreet Four. So yeah, basically it's a Pokemon battle simulator, but it is a very light and very simple version of that, and it isn't terribly deep. It does seem like a kind of rough month for Game Freak though, with other studios breathing fresh air into their game concepts. To keep this short though, Yakuza Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth is a wild game that would sound quite frankly crazy in a pitch meeting. It's a game about criminals and underground crime conspiracies in a fantasized real world with overly exaggerated characters where the main protagonist, a virgin in his mid-40s, carries around a baseball bat that he considers his holy sword, who goes on an epic quest to make the world a better place through the power of friendship and bully beatdowns packed with tons of minigames and humor. And while the story can be very slow at times and definitely isn't isn't for everyone, the wacky, charming charisma, or Riz as the kiddos call it, alongside the classic RPG elements, really make this game feel like something special. At least for me anyways, and honestly this game is one hell of a passover until Final Fantasy VII Rebirth finally comes out. But this game isn't all sunshine and rainbows. As mentioned, the story writing, while good, can definitely not be for everyone, and the slow pace that it moves at times can be a big hurdle to overcome if you have a shorter attention span. Also, I play this on the PS5, and while sometimes the game looks really good and amazing, other times it can look a little plain, so there's definitely some graphical inconsistency going on. And while I do think the combat is enjoyable overall, it can be pretty simple at times, and can probably use better menu management, and maybe one of the bigger issues of this game is the whole monetization around it. The game has about $160 worth of additional DLCs that can be included in various tiers of the game editions. Honestly though, most of this stuff just isn't needed and feels like a waste of cash. It doesn't feel like they're creating an artificial grinding issue. They're just kind of selling a more of a you can hit fast forward if you really want to by buying these things. They give you things like level grinding help, getting additional resources in your island resort, as well as getting additional Senjukumon in battles. And honestly though, I feel like them giving you help in these areas kind of make these elements less enjoyable. And also things like costumes I feel like should be unlocks, and while this isn't a setting I would necessarily care for, the fact that New Game Plus, which apparently also has a dungeon attached to it, which from what I see isn't that good, is behind a paywall, is a bit gross and kind of a stain on a game that I would consider pretty great overall. Now, there is a side quest in this game that I think really perfectly encapsulates Yakuza Like a Dragon and the essence of this game with its wacky humor and serious plots, so I am going to spoil this quest and share it with you. This quest starts out with a man strangely trying to find snow on the island of Hawaii. He's buying shaved ice and all kinds of things, and you even see them dumping this on himself at times. Eventually you find him at a mall though, but a baby stroller rolls into the street that you end up having to chase down, only to reveal it's your old pal, the Yakuza boss that LARPs as a baby in the past title. From here though, a strange event happens. You realize the baby powder in their diapers reacts to water in a strange way and creates an almost identical snow-like substitute. But why was this man looking for snow in the first place? Well, it's because his wife is dying, and she has one last wish to see snow one last time with him. So what happens? Kasuga and a bunch of grown men in diapers throw this fake snow off a building, so this guy can give his dying wife her final wish before she slips away into the night. This is a game that can make you laugh and smile while playing it because of the pure absurdity, which can also make you say fuck yeah let's do this when you challenge a gang boss and get a crazy cutscene and some hype music kicks in. But it can also give you a gut punch when you experience character stories and their tragedies and you watch them unfold in front of you. And although this writing style isn't for everyone and can be slow at times, it is really well written. And while the game does have gross monetization, I feel like these DLCs actually take away from the base game and make it worse, so you're better off buying the base version. But because of the crazy combination of a deep story with wacky humor and crazy themes and plots, I think it just really makes this game something special and is truly worth a shot if you're a fan of RPGs in general. But hey, those are just my opinions. Let me know what you think, and as always, drive fast, take chances. Later, nerds.
All right, man. You take care of yourself.
Yeah.